This is Scratch Your Own Itch, the one show that delivers the conversations that we're afraid to share, but need to. This show is all about creating a life worth living. I'm Logan Tyler Nelson, and I'm your host. So, you're going to hear conversations with creators and entrepreneurs talk about what they do, their current and past traumas, how they became who they are, and what they are truly curious about. This is the show where we talk about the things we think about a lot, but need to talk about more. Please take note that this show is not a substitute for actually creating a life worth living, because this show will stir your beliefs, make you question what it means to create a life worth living. So my promise to you is to always give you one question to answer for yourself today to start turning your dreams into a reality. Hey friends, so I'm really excited for you guys to listen to this episode. I can't wait. Tanya is just awesome. I love this topic about the imposter complex because I think that there are so many people that have it, but very few people are talking about it. So this episode is really, really useful for anybody that's a perfectionist, that's highly creative, that has work that they've done, that they've put a lot of time and effort into, and it just did not turn out the way they thought it did. And they're believing in their work actually being bad. But really, that's just the story they're telling themselves. And it's all about the same sort of stuff that I talk about in my book. So, not that it's released yet, but that book will be out there and in the ethos, and it's all about the stories we tell ourselves that ultimately create our identity. So, if you're all fascinated by this, check out my Facebook group, Scratching Your Own Itch, Create a Life Worth Living. It's really about those deep, crazy questions that you may have about entrepreneurship, authorship, fitness. There's a lot of people in that community that know their stuff. So definitely check that out if you are looking for 12 quality questions to start living a quality life. Email me, Logan at logantylernelson.com. I'll send you a free PDF about those questions. Really, honestly, these questions, I've spent a lot of time thinking about these questions and really asking myself these questions that have made me a much different person than since starting this show. So hit the subscribe button, and don't forget that every single time a new episode comes out and you have that subscribe button hit, you are notified that, hey, Scratch Your Own Itch just let out another episode, so check it out. And that is an amazing compliment. And if you want this show to be found a little bit more, you can go above and beyond and leave a review, and I'd love to read it on the show, just so everyone knows that you right now are having your own itch scratched, and you're getting the tools that are ultimately giving you the life that you feel it's worth creating, because we can create the life that we deserve. It's all a matter of just putting in the certain effort and thinking about the right things and asking yourself the right questions. So, with that being said, enjoy my interview with Tanya and I. Hey, you. Yeah, just you. So, my curiosity question for you today is, why do you think the very thing that you care about the most often feels like you've never ever quite hit it right? Let me say that again. So my curiosity question for you today is, why do you think the very thing that you care about the most often feels like you've never ever really quite hit it right? What do I mean by this? I mean, there are certainly times where you might question whether you're good enough, or you worry about if you're ready enough. You might think that people might think of you as, oh my God, that person is amazing. They're incredible at what they do. But inside your head, you actually think about how terrible you are, how terrible your work are, that you actually stole all this work, and this little trick that your mind plays on you makes you actually believe it, even though it's totally not true. For example, let's say you finally start writing the book you fully believe you were meant to write. And then what happens? You hit serious procrastination syndrome and stop. You hate cleaning, but you start cleaning everything. You hate doing laundry, and all of a sudden, you could open up a little side business as a side hustler, washing and drying clothes for yourself and the rest of the community around you. And suddenly, that thing that you cared about most, you procrastinate over and over again because you're deeply afraid of being found out about this thing that you're actually incredible at. And if this at all resonates with you, I want to let you know that you're not alone. And I want to let you know that my guest today is a genius when it comes to talking about the imposter syndrome and procrastination. Tanya is a certified life and business coach, TEDx woman speaker, and writer who teaches leaders how to step into their starring roles, own their authority, and overcome the imposter complex in life, in their work, and in their life's work. The work that they were meant to do. The work where they started to finally scratch their own itch. So, without further ado, I'd love to introduce you to Tanya. Thank you so much for coming on the show, Tanya. No.
Honey, I could listen to you all day. I swear, I could just listen to you all day. I'm like, I forgot that we're even doing an interview. I'm just so lulled in, like waiting for your next thing that you're going to say. It's a beautiful thing. Thank you for having me here.
Wow. Thank you for saying that. I'm super excited for you on your work. Has been a saving grace for the last couple of days because just reading into what you've published online as far as the check, please anyone that needs to hear this right now, check out her website and or just listen to this first. Let's do that. And then we'll see if you fall into this category of imposter syndrome, then definitely check out her stuff because it resonates with everybody, I think, but mostly creative, the people that are super hard on themselves and think that they have to be perfect all the time. So anyways, I want to start off I want to start off the show with because I kind of talked to you off air about the mission of this show is to really make people feel less alone and give people the tools to start scratching their own itch by asking themselves quality questions in order to live a life that gives them freedom and money to do the things they love. But I'd love to start off by making someone feel less alone by sharing with us a story that ultimately really challenged you, a vulnerable story, but it ultimately changed you too.
So, where do I begin? I have so many vulnerable stories I could share. So it's interesting because in this precise moment, what I'm really, really, really craving for that hey you person to know is that I struggled for a super, like a lot of years in my life. I had all sorts of outward banners and awards and, I had, by all accounts, had a very successful kind of life. Whatever success means. And that was part of it. I didn't really know what it meant to be truthful. I didn't really know what it meant. My mother, who passed away when I was 32, the same year my daughter was born, had given me the most beautiful blessing, but it felt like a curse. And it was, you're going to set the world on fire. And I spent so much of my life trying to figure out, am I doing it now? Am I doing it now? Am I setting the world on fire now? Now am I doing it? Now am I doing it? And though her words were so beautiful and intended to be this benediction, they really felt like this hungry ghost I couldn't feed. And so it didn't matter how well I was doing professionally or how popular I was or, fill in the blanks for whatever metric of success you might use. And it wasn't really until the only Danielle Laporte named the words imposter complex that I really got what was actually happening with me and why I continuously felt like an imposter inside of my life. And I became deeply curious about what this thing was that I could sense in my life, and I could certainly see in the clients that I had started to work with as a leadership coach. It didn't matter if they'd sat on Oprah's couch or if they were about to go into the Today Show or how long their best-selling book had been on the New York Times best-selling list. They felt this place of feeling like an imposter, like it's just a matter of time before everyone finds out that they're a fake, or that their success is an illusion. And so I became deeply curious about that. So that's not necessarily the story I thought I was going to tell you, but that's what I think somebody needs to hear right now, that you can feel there are all of these metrics of success that you might be hitting. And yet you feel this sense of imposterhood, and it's painful and it's in the way. And so my job is to make sure that you can, step into the shape that the universe has carved out for you, that you're not stepping into because of this experience of the imposter complex, where you are holding yourself back, staying out of action, doubting your capacities, and feeling alone and isolated, which, by the way, is the exact 3 objectives of the imposter complex.
I totally agree with that, all of what you said, and thank you so much for that bit of transparency and vulnerability that I think so many need to feel more of, because that is them. It's like when you feel finally like the floor beneath you is kind of shaky and rocky. Like that is life to me. That is life. Like that's like that means you're living, and to do things that even though it seems routine, it's so not routine, if that makes sense at all. So
yeah. So I have something really specific, 2 really specific things I want to say about the imposter complex, and one is a good news situation. Actually, I've got nothing but good news as it relates to the imposter complex, to be completely honest with you, because it's like fear. Once we can see it for what it is, we just need to gather our tools to, like you say, scratch your own itch. So the first bit of good news is that if you are experiencing it, that actually means, by definition, you are high functioning with strong values of mastery, integrity, and excellence. Actual imposters don't feel like imposters. Actual frauds don't feel like frauds. So if you are in this experience of it's just a matter of time, they're going to find out, I'm not ready, that's pointing to your values of excellence, of integrity, of mastery, of wanting to be really good, really solid at your craft, at your art. It's a beautiful thing. Okay? So my work is never about eradicating it. It's about helping you to understand when it's showing up and choosing another way forward. So that's the first bit of good news that I have. And then the other is that it often shows up on the precipice of evolution. So it shows up when we are on the cusp of doing something new and, here's the rub, meaningful to us. So when this doubt, that when this profound doubt, I'll say, shows up, it's really pointing to the fact that you never did this before. You never did this thing before. You've never launched this product or created that piece of art or raised your hand to that person or you've just never done it before. And that it really, really matters to you. There are lots of places in my life that I have absolutely no imposter complex feelings, none whatsoever. Those are the areas that I'm not concerned about mastery. I'm not concerned about being the best at. My perfectionism doesn't get triggered around my yoga practice or, how I serve tea, like not a tea ceremony, right? Like it doesn't show up there. But in my speaking, in my leading, in my parenting, in my writing, in my coaching, these are the places that is deeply important to me. So it's going to show up there every time I'm on the precipice of expansion.
Oh, thank you. Yeah. Thank you so much
Make
for
sense?
saying all that, because that was the big, huge, I guess, paradigm shift for myself when I was listening to you just now, was that sort of like, wow, like this is why I get so hard on myself when I look at myself in the mirror and I go, my body sucks. And I work so hard every single day to make sure that I'm eating the right things, that I'm taking the right supplements, that I'm working out with the right perfect program. And on other things, like not just working out, but writing, where like I'll spend like 4 hours during the day to just think about what I want to write. And then I finally start writing for like an hour and I get into it and I reread the stuff that I've written, and I just want to hit myself, because honestly, let's just talk about like deep stuff, because this show is all about just authenticity. But like literally just go like, I'm not even good enough to write one single sentence that is meaningful enough to actually get out there. And like literally that stuff will go through your head, and it's only until one person goes, hey, that's actually really good work. And then finally you go and you do it again. But it's like, do we even, like, what if we could train ourselves to actually just give ourselves the permission that it is good enough? Like even in the work that we care about most. So that's why I think a coach is just such an incredible idea, is to have that person that's with you. So let me talk to you a little bit about what sort of offers you have as a coaching practice. Just because I know myself, like I love helping people with their problems, and I've marketed myself lately as a coach just because I've helped a few people with really just changing their life physically, because I believe in the body is the mind. So I'll coach them physically, and mentally they'll just come out way more clear in their life and what they do. But I really want to hear about your work.
Yeah. So, I mean, right now, I've got a 9-month program that keeps me pretty busy. So I'm not doing a ton of work, one-on-one work right now, but that changes on a dime. The way I tend to work with people is, so like I say, this 9-month program, it's called the Academy. And really what we're working on is somebody stepping into CEO and somebody stepping into business owner. And we're all at different places. Somebody stepping into goddess. Somebody stepping, so it's like stepping into that articulation, that expression of who you are, when you have fully inhabited that space that the universe has carved out for you, like I was talking about before. What does that mean? And that's where the imposter complex shows up, right? It's this whole like, who are you to step into CEO? Who are you to step into coach? Who are you to step into leader? So that's really like my biggest piece right now of my business. And I do a lot of speaking, and I have a self-guided program called the Starring Role Playbook. And I have a couple of one-on-one spots that I work with people. I don't tend to work with people for very long periods of time. Usually there is some pretty large resistance. And it's usually shaped like the imposter complex that, people are coming up against. And so once they have the playbook in their hands, they can really start to work through it and get into and under why it's showing up. And usually it's because it's, like I say, super important to them. But some of our strategies when we come to the imposter complex, you mentioned procrastination as a place that we go and we hide out. There are actually 5 other things that show up when we are not wanting to feel like the imposter. And that's actually procrastination is one that you named gorgeously. The other is perfectionism. We hide out from being found out that we are the imposter in our perfectionism. We also hide out in comparison, in diminishment, in people pleasing, and in leaky boundaries. So these are the 6 areas that we don't want to feel like the imposter. So we are going to hide out in these behaviors. And in doing so, the imposter complex starts to win, right? Because remember I said it has 3 objectives, and those are to keep you out of action, to have you doubt your capacity, and to keep you alone and isolated. This is really important that you can see where your own triggers are. Like maybe your story is procrastination. So straight up, I'll tell you, mine is people pleasing. And it's really important to me that everyone likes me, that everyone, everyone. And it's a hungry ghost too, right? Like I'm never going to accomplish that. But here's the double bind of the imposter complex. When I get given an opportunity, when I am handed the microphone, when somebody invites me somewhere, because of this people-pleasing tendency that I have, in conjunction with my imposter complex, I actually feel like the only reason I'm getting given the opportunity is because they like me, not because I am an expert in this, or I'm a very skilled speaker or gifted coach. So that's so I just really want people to recognize their own behavioral go-to. So maybe yours is procrastination and somebody else is, a people pleaser like me. Because what the imposter complex does, and this is a really important point to make sure that we understand the difference between it and run-of-the-mill self-doubt. The imposter complex shows up when we have, even though we have data points of our success, we can't internalize it. So in spite of the proof of our success, in spite of those, the accolades that we get from people about the brilliant copy we've just written, Logan, or in spite of the fact that people are, commending us for our good work, or that we actually can feel and see the good work that we are creating and producing in the world, we can't allow those successes to become internalized. We pass it up to luck or fluke or timing or just because they like us. Failures, on the other hand, we are more than able to internalize. So that's the biggest distinction between run-of-the-mill self-doubt and this imposter complex piece. In spite of the proof that we have, that we can look to, we can't really absorb it. And so our job becomes around getting clear and asking ourselves those brilliant questions that you've been pointing us to.
Yeah. Oh my God. I love all this because that happens to be one of mine as well, is the people pleasing, is that I want everybody to like me. And honestly, the hardest thing is, and I think that this is why there's a certain niche group of people that you really need to listen to this, is that when you have that person that walks by you that has a frown on their face, or, they look like they're just not having a good day, and they look at you and then their face changes or something, you fully believe, I don't know, I'm asking you this too, Tanya, if you've ever had this, you fully believe that it's your fault. Like, it's your fault that they're having the worst day of their life, or it's their fault that their life sucks, even though it's like not, but you make yourself believe that. And that's why I think it's so incredibly important for just that one person to know that it's not their fault that the world sometimes suffers, even though you want to help everybody, but you just can't help everybody. And that's what I go through. So you do too.
Yes. Yes. Of course. Absolutely. I think that's just part of being, a compassionate human being. We want to, you speak about the folks listening as creatives. I mean, they're healers. as long as you're a healer, you're always going to want to transmute other people's pain. And sometimes what we forget is that you might have some of the tools, but it does come from we need to be willing to step up and take the medicine as well.
Oh my God. And this is what the imposter complex to me is, the medicine. This is the book that I'm kind of writing right now with the two consciousness and how it can play tricks on you, is for me just the medicine that I think it's the story that you tell yourself, right? So let me get also a little bit insight towards, I know you do speaking work too. Like, I want to make it super transparent, that to the point where maybe anybody that's done a speaking gig or gone on stage, like, are there any thoughts that you have before going on stage that other people might have as well, just so you can make that other person feel less alone, that also does speaking work, that's like, okay, all right, I guess I'm not alone in this?
Okay, well, here's the thing. The universe is a tricky place to be. And it loves integrity. It really loves integrity. So I am I would have said a couple of years ago, self-professed expert in the imposter complex. At this point, I'm a full-on expert in the imposter complex. So to make sure that I'm in integrity, you can rest assured that the universe is going to make sure that I experience the imposter complex as I step up. And there is literally not a single time, not a single audience where I don't have a moment of, what if I get asked the question that I can't answer? What if I actually don't know my stuff? What if? And I've been speaking professionally professionally to me, I've been paid well for my speaking for probably the last 5 years. And we think that something happens when you start getting paid. No, I had the exact same nervousness, well before I was getting paid, because I was getting up there and doing something that mattered. And so it got ramped up a little bit when I started getting paid, and then when I started getting paid really well. But it was ultimately the same desire. I really wanted to convey clearly and powerfully and articulately and inspirationally and usefully and helpfully something to everyone who was paying attention. And so one of the things I needed to do was kind of dial back a little bit those expectations, and really started to think about, well, what if I don't have to impact absolutely everyone here? What if somebody's just being dragged by their partner or their friend or their colleague, and they don't really need to hear what I have to say? What if I just need to speak to two people, two brilliant souls who are stuck inside of a place, and I have the key? What if I can just connect with those two people? And then what kind of impact is that going to have on their world? And then. And when I really started just to desire to connect with, two beautiful souls, boy, that sure got an awful lot easier.
I love how just focused it goes when you just focus on that. Yeah. Oh my God. It just, it makes me think about simplicity and minimalism, and how more is actually less, and but it's just hard to do, right?
Yeah, for sure. Especially as a people pleaser. This is what I'm saying. This is the tension, right? Like, I want everybody in that 1,000-person audience to love me. There's no doubt about it. And the moment I try to be all things to all people, I lose myself, and I lose the message, and I lose my power, and then I lose all 1,000. So I'd much rather connect to two people that really need to hear what I have to say, and allow the delight to unfold in magical ways that, I still have people coming back from the first real pro gig that I had 5 years ago that are still part of my world. And they weren't necessarily the two people I was trying to connect with, right? But my point is that we never know who will be impacted by what we say, what we write, what we create. And we'll certainly never know if we don't get out and write and create and speak. and say what needs to be said.
Oh, I love so much of that just now that what you just said. Oh my God, that could be put on a shirt and just be read. Every single person should read that shirt. So I want to get into this. I call them scratching the surface curiosity questions because we're coming up to the end, because you've already said so many amazing things about the imposter complex. And I really think you summed it up well. And I know one person that needs to listen to this right now that's finally stepping into the role that they're certain to play for a long time is like, okay, me too. Awesome. So I feel like, yeah, job well done. If there was some sound effects, like let's dust off your hands. I want to get into this sort of, I call curiosity questions scratching the surface, just because honestly, I'm just so curious about the way certain people answer these questions. So whenever you're ready, I'm going to get into those. Awesome. First one is because the show is all about making people feel less alone. You might have answered already, but what is one habitual thought that you keep having during the day? Like a really scarring thought that you keep having during the day that you just wish you did not have anymore.
Does this matter?
Yeah. Oh my God, you're not alone in that at all. The next question I'd like to ask is, if you could sit down one person in front of you, dead or alive, and become that person for just 1 month, who would it be and why?
Oh my goodness. Wow. That is a great question. Who would I want to be? Oh my gosh. I gotta think about that. Can you ask me the next one while my subconscious works away on that? Yeah. Oh my goodness.
I think I know why you're having a hard time, but if you don't come up with anything, we'll talk about it later. So the next question is, if you had a belief system about yourself 10 years ago, and you go back and you think about that belief system, and you think about who you are now compared to that old belief system, what is it that you're like, wow, that was totally not true about myself?
Well, I think it comes back to what I shared earlier about that whole setting the world on fire thing, because I think what I'm really starting to understand is that there's such an ego-based question. It's really, and what I know to be true, what I didn't know 10 years ago, is that the ego wants to want more than it wants to get. So it's okay to continue to want the next and want to expand and expand and expand. And you're never really going to fully get there, because that's just how that works. So that would have saved me from a lot of angst and anxiety. And I'm not perfect, but I know now that I know more than I think, and I'll never know.
Thank you so much for saying that. That the truth is, it's a never-ending road. I mean, and it's just that we just got to keep playing the game, and the game that we choose is totally within our power. Very cool. Very cool. I don't think a lot of people talk about that, because everyone believes that once they get this thing, they'll finally be there. They'll finally be happy, and they'll have the permission to put a smile on their face. But truth is the journey is the gold. Anyways, next question I'd like to ask is, if you could take one habit to contribute to any success that you've had, what would it be?
So I know why I do what I do, and I call it, it's an exercise that I do, and it's called discerning your brand of joy. And so I know that at the center of my everything is this strong value for joy. And what I call joy, you might call freedom, and somebody might call success, but I know what for me comprises joy, and that's generosity and connection and gratitude. And so absolutely everything that I do well, that I do, that is aligned, has been synced up with my brand of joy. So everything, even my little prayer before our conversation was that may we connect, and may I be able to be as generous as possible with what I have, and may I feel gratitude for this conversation. So that really, for me, informs so much of what I do quite well in my realm. And every time that I suffer, it is because I'm out of joy. My dad just passed away, a month and a half ago, and going through that death process was, obviously incredibly challenging. And yet there was plenty of joy. And I don't mean joy because it was like a sweet and lovely death. It was brutal. But in the process, trying to be able to connect with connection and gratitude and generosity saved me. And I literally feel like if I didn't have that as a habit, as a practice of something to come back to, we still wouldn't be having this conversation.
Oh my gosh. You're right. First of all, A, we have connected so that prayer works. B, that is so much like me, because I had to come up with my own personal philosophy, which is if I'm not curious, compassionate, or creating something, and I find myself exhausted through the day, or just lost, or honestly really depressed and having suicidal thoughts, like, even though those suicidal thoughts are not me, it's usually because I'm not curious, compassionate, or creative about something. And so I love that you do that, and I'm willing to write those down and adopt those and steal the heck out of them without any shame or guilt, because they're just that amazing.
And honestly, like for you, like you are, you are so fine when you are, what my word for what I call joy for you, it's like alive. Like you are so alive when you are creating, when you're curious, that's you at your absolute best. So striving for that in all that you do, bringing attention, that's your how. And that's you at your absolute best. And when you're not feeling that sense of aliveness, then that's your job, is to see how you can cultivate more of those underpinning values. And that's your super highway back to feeling like
thank you.
Logan.
Thank you so much for saying that. Because, on this show, it's a thing about podcasts that I think are really hard for a lot of people to listen to, is they go, oh my God, this person's, they're what they're hearing right now, what you're hearing, if you showed up today and you listened to this, it's because you probably care really deeply about your life. And then we talk about, things that are just happy and joyous and fun. And I get really scared, and I fear that maybe that just might not be real life for them, if that makes sense at all. So I guess my next question is, though, what is, it doesn't really connect with this, but it's more so, if people started doing this one thing today, fill in the blank, like XYZ, their life would just dramatically change.
So I got two answers for this, and one basically brings us back to the same place. Kiss your hands. Kiss your hands. Kiss the tops of your hands for what you've created and what you've done and what you've made and what you've crafted and what you've survived. Kiss your hands.
I love that. That is amazing.
Yeah. Isn't that... It's full on props to Casey Earnwood, who's doing some work with me in the academy, and she's the one who came up with that. And I was like, oh my gosh, I'm a huge fan of celebration. But here's my thing: as a people pleaser and as somebody who really understands that the imposter complex is trying to have you doubt your capacities, you need to come back to center and recognize all that you have done and created and survived and healed and delivered and sold and offered and given and received. So this is actually something that I have people do, is to do audits, track your wins on a daily basis, because this recognizing and being able to count on and in our own capacities is contingent upon us knowing our own strengths, knowing what we are capable of. Because until we have done that and rooted into how fantastic we are, we can't even begin to really internalize the beautiful things that people say about us and our work. It's really an inside job before it's an outside job. And so, particularly for us people pleasers, they're just being nice anyway. So, Logan, I so appreciate is when I've been acknowledging you and how you're showing up. You've really allowed that to sink in, and you've allowed it to be absorbed, and you're taking a leap of faith and you're trusting me, and I can feel that and I appreciate that. But it requires us to be able to do that. It does require us to do our internal work of being able to remind ourselves so that we are not dependent on the words and acknowledgments and accolades of other people. So kiss your hands. Kiss your hands as a metaphor and as a gesture and as a structure for reminding yourself just how powerful and fantastic
that is so
you really
cool.
are.
That is so, yeah. And maybe that one person that listens to this goes, it's kind of weird. It's only weird because you haven't. You got to try it. Yes. If you're at all curious of what it's like to kiss your hands, I did it while you were talking about it. And I'll be honest with you, it is very foreign. I haven't done that before. And I'm sure that I won't be doing that if I ever am a mechanic one day and I have oil all over my hands. So definitely take precaution. Maybe, right?
Maybe you will. Maybe you will.
We're about to end it out because I want to respect your time, and I want, honestly, to just have everyone that's listening to this not just consume all day, but actually start asking themselves the quality questions and start doing the work that they need to do and be creative. And if, though, they want to find more of your work, where can they go to find you?
You can find me at tanyageisler.com. And here's how I'm going to remain accountable, because you're asking such great questions of me. I am inviting them to kiss their hands, which can or cannot be a metaphor, by the way. What I really want them to do is to track their wins, the good decisions that they made, the things that they've been doing that were hard and they did anyway. But here's where you can hold me accountable. I still haven't answered the question who I would want to be for 1 month. So if you're listening, feel free to email me and ask me at tanya@tanyageisler.com. And I will have an answer for you.
I love that.
That's what we'll do.
We totally set that up. Kidding, but not kidding. Maybe kidding. So that will be the one thing that we'll leave off on to keep a cliffhanger. And I love storytelling, and I know how it works. If you don't have a nice cliffhanger, it doesn't work as well. So it was all meant to be. Anyways, if you're listening right now and you found anything that was quotable, Instagram, Facebook, tweet about it. Do anything that you'd like to put it out into the ethos and start living by it, because really that kind of work does take a little bit more time out of your day, but that kind of work also allows you to start stepping into the shoes that you're meant to wear. And when I say that, I fully believe it. And I didn't want to make this podcast just as like another podcast where you hit next and then you listen to this person that was on there as a guest and you go, oh my God, they're so my hero. But I want you to really become friends with us and become a community member. So if you're looking to join a Facebook group, Scratch Your Own Itch Facebook groups out there. If you're looking to just connect with Tanya or I, she just gave her email. My email is logan@logantylernelson.com. I just want to make more friends. I don't give a crap if you got a bunch of money to spend on coaching. I just want you to be the best version of you and to not feel like an imposter anymore, like Tanya Geisler does so much of. So she's the master at it. But if I've got a question, or if you got a question for me that I can't answer, I'm going to refer you to Tanya. So I can't wait. With all that said, thank you again, Tanya, for coming on Scratch Your Own Itch.
Totally my delight. It was just a gorgeous, gorgeous time with you. Thank you for having me.
My pleasure. Likewise. Wow. Hey, so that was another episode of Scratch Your Own Itch with Tanya and I. That was a really, really, really awesome conversation. Tanya's super awesome. She stayed with me for another extra like 5 or 6 minutes just to talk. And she's got it going on. I really do believe that imposter complex is a real thing. And it is not something that we don't really talk about that much. And I think we're starting to talk about it more. And hey, maybe you know about this stuff and you're like, I'm a master at this stuff. Well, I'm happy that it was a good review, possibly for you. But if you didn't know about this stuff, what I ended up doing is I wrote a little article about it. So if you're interested in reading that article, I have a PDF of it. So email me, Logan at LoganTylerNelson.com, about possibly the story that you're telling yourself that just isn't true. Just because you're working so hard on something and you think that your work is bad, like whether it be in acting, whether it be in writing, whether it be in making relationships with people, I would love to have a conversation with you and talk about your imposter complex. And maybe you can read this article too and go, hey, wow, like I don't actually think I am as bad of a person as I think I am. And it's true, you're not. So anyways, please take a little bit of time and leave a review. If you could, that would be awesome. I know it takes a little bit of extra time out of your day to do that. And my mouth is super dry right now, and I'm just noticing that. So if I'm talking a little weird, it's because my mouth is dry. Just letting you know, just being honest. But also hit that subscribe button, and don't ever forget, you matter and you're enough.